Alright, good morning my friends. In today's video we're going to be installing this air compressor from TRE. So as you all know, I ordered this some time ago, but I was waiting for some fittings to arrive before we could install it on the JIMNY. So today we're going to be installing it. So we have the compressor itself. So in the box we had the TRE air compressor itself. We have a switch, we have the filter, we have some mounting hardware, we have a relay, and we have the wiring harness. So today we're going to install that on the JIMNY. This is the air compressor I chose to run my air lockers and occasionally inflate my tires. It delivers a flow rate of 2.18 CFM at 29 psi and draws about 22.9 amps of current. While it's not the most powerful compressor on the market, it's perfectly suited for my needs. If you're interested in getting one, you can find it on the TRE website or pick it up locally at ABS Offroad Limited. So when it comes to mounting these air compressors, there's usually three main locations. There's in the engine bay, there's under the seat, and there's in the trunk. In my case, I'll be mounting it under the seat, in particular the driver's seat, because I usually have a toolkit under my passenger seat. I chose to mount it under the seat for several reasons. First, it keeps it free from the elements like heat from the engine, mud during off-roading, and water when cleaning. Second, ease of access. I don't have to pop the bonnet every time I want to use it, especially if it's raining and wet on the trail. Lastly, under the seat is unused free space, so utilizing that space saves me from occupying valuable trunk space. So this is what I came up with to mount the compressor. So we're going to make a bracket here, an L bracket that bolts on the original seat bolt. We're going to do the same on this side for this seat bolt, and then we're going to connect both of them like this. Then I'll take the compressor and I will mount it on this bracket like this. Right now the compressor too high to be mounted under the seat, but this could actually rotate like this. And when you rotate it like that, it can go comfortably under the seat. Now another reason why I'm mounting it at the back and not the front is because I can easily access it if I need to troubleshoot it, or if I need to access it for some other reason, I can always just slide my seat forward and have full access to the compressor. I decided to make this entire compressor mount out of 1/8" flat stock because I wanted it to be sturdy yet simple, lightweight and affordable. So I just made the two brackets out of metal. This one goes in like this, and this one goes under like this. And they bolt on the original seat bolt. Remove this. Alright, so next we want to get the angle for this piece in the middle, that bridge them. We need to get the exact angle here and the angle here. Although I'm building this specifically for the JIMNY, this design can be modified to fit any vehicle and compressor as long as there's enough room under the seat to fit the compressor. Right, so this is the piece for the middle that bridge both of them. So for the side here, I'm not going to be doing a butt joint, I'm going to be doing a lap joint because I want a space underneath this for the bolt head for when we mount the compressor. So it'll have a little space underneath this piece to account for the screw head. So let's make this one out of metal. So this is where we are. We have the two brackets and we have the piece that bridge them. So what we need to do now is weld it up and then we'll move on from here. So now that we have the bracket on, next step is to decide where on the bracket we want to mount the compressor. and then weld this piece to be able to mount it from the base. Alright, so this is where we reach. We have the mounting spot for the compressor, and I put on 4 bolts. So the compressor fits. Alright, so the compressor fits like that, and I'll bolt on right there. So in addition to running lockers with this, I'm going to be using it to inflate my tires. So what I want to do now is going to weld on this piece like this to be able to mount a quick release chock here. Alright, so this is the completed bracket. This is what it looks like. This is how it came out. So I went ahead and I give it a sand and I round all the edges and everything. So now it's just to wipe it down and paint it. So it's day 2 of the compressor install. Yesterday I finished build the bracket and I painted it. I let it dry overnight. So the goal for today is to finish the plumbing and the wiring. So now that we install the compressor, let's focus on the wiring. So at first glance, this may look complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. So let's go through them. In the box, we have 2 harnesses. We have one for your switch and the other one for your power. So let's start with the switch harness. So on the switch harness, you'll notice 3 branches of wires. 2 of them is for locker switches, and the 3rd one is for your air compressor switch. On the same harness, we have 2 wires, a red and a blue. The red one goes to your ignition and the blue one goes to your illumination. Now these would go to your fuse box, and then we have a connector here, which we'll see where this goes shortly. Now when it comes to the power, we have the red and black wire, which would go directly to your battery, and this is fused. Depending on your installation, you may need to extend this. We'll be extending this. Moving down the harness, we have these connectors here. Red and black goes to the compressor for power, and these 2 connectors with the green and yellow goes to the solenoid for the lockers. The red and blue wire goes to the pressure switch on the compressor. Moving down, we have a relay that goes here, and coming down to the end, we have 4 wires which we need to connect to this connector here and then connect here. So we just be matching up this. So let's start by wiring up the connector. So what we're going to do is just connect this like this, and then we're going to match the color wires from here to here. So yellow is top left in my case, so yellow would go in here like this. Then we have green next to that, so green would go here. We have red under the green, so red under the green, and then black under the yellow, so black goes there. Alright, and there we have it. This connects like that and all the wire matches. I think it would be easier to run the wire if we remove the seat, so let's remove the seat. Yep. So you're going to start with the main harness for power. So this connects to the compressor like this. Then we'd have the pressure switch connecting here, and these 2 would be for the solenoid for the lockers. So from here, all we need to do is we need to run this wire to the engine bay. So what I'm going to do is there's a slit in the carpet right here. I'm going to run it through here and all the way up to the passenger side, and from the passenger side there's the grommet that goes into the engine bay. So from there I'll fish it through and we'll get this in the engine bay. So we run the wire to the passenger side, so next step is to cut the fuse. Now we need to do that for two reasons. The first one is we need to run this wire through the grommet and it's not going to pass through with this fuse. The second reason is we need to extend this wire and we want to move the fuse as close to the battery as possible. Because if we leave this wire long and we mount the fuse away from the battery, if anything happens to the wire before the fuse is not going to pop. So we want to always keep our fuse as close to the battery as possible. So just finish around the wire, and from the grommet there we go up and across to the battery. Now at the battery we have the positive wire and the negative wire. I crimp on some ring terminals, so the positive wire would connect to the positive terminal and the negative wire would connect to the negative terminal. And I have the fuse tucked away nicely in here. So next is the wire up the switch. So to wire up the switch now, we have the switch harness, we have the air compressor switch from TRE, and we have the wiring diagram from TRE. So what we need to do is just take our compressor wires here and match it up to the correct pins on here. So according to the diagram, red and yellow goes to pin number 2. So red and yellow goes to pin number 2, which is this one here. Red goes to pin number 3. So red goes to pin number 3. Blue and white goes to pin number 6, which is this one here. And 7 and 8 we connect any black wires. So 7 and 8. Alright, so we just need to push these in all the way and then we finish with this. So now that we have the switch connected properly, it's time to install this harness. Now I went ahead and I soldered a fuse tab to the blue and white wire. This goes to illumination, and then the red and yellow wire goes to ignition. Now I didn't wire a fuse tab there because I already have a fuse tab to the ignition, so I'll just connect that to the fuse tab. So I'm going to be mounting my switch right here, so I could just pop this out with a flat head like that. And just to get more room, I'll remove the whole switch panel here. Sorry. So the last step to wiring this up now, I went ahead and I installed the relay. So the last thing to do is just to connect up under the dash by the fuse box and then connect this from the power harness to this switch harness here, and we finish with wiring. So one thing to note before we wrap up the wiring, the blue and white wire that's supposed to go into the fuse box for dash illumination, I ended up tapping that into the red and yellow wire behind the fog light switch to get the illumination, because I couldn't find a fuse in the fuse box that worked with the illumination. Alright, so we finished with all the electrical, so the last thing to do now is the plumbing. So to plumb the system, we have these fittings here. So we have a 90-degree elbow that goes into the compressor. From that, we go into a Y. From the Y, we go into 2 bulkhead fitting. On one of the bulkhead, we have a quick release for an air compressor hose. And then on the other one, we have a one-way valve to release the air from the compressor when we finish using it. So I just finished the installation. Let's see how it works. So it works on ignition. So the ignition needs to be on. And if I turn on the illumination, you can see that lights up there. And then when I switch it, compressor turns on and the switch is illuminated. So what I noticed was these quick fittings have a very, very small leak, so I might consider changing it out to brass fittings in the future, but for now it works fine. So we can plug in our air compressor hose here, and once we finish we can release the air from the system by just pressing the switch. So now it's just time to put on back the seat. So it took about 50 seconds to inflate it from 10 to 18, and that's using one of these inflator. The gun would be a lot faster, but this is what I have today. So that's it, works great. I'm really happy with the installation and how everything came out.